It started with a whisper, just one terrified whisper in the dark. A whisper that would unravel a secret buried so deep, so twisted, that even the detectives who uncovered it struggled to sleep afterward. Tonight, you are about to enter a story where nothing is what it seems, where family bonds break under the weight of hidden truths, and where the line between victim and killer slowly dissolves into something far more disturbing. Welcome to Minds of Murderers. If this is your first time here, join our growing community of crime detectives by hitting the subscribe button. Your support helps us dive deeper into the darkest stories humanity has ever written. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Because in the next few minutes, you'll witness a case that begins with love, but ends with a nightmare. A case that shocked an entire town and destroyed a family from the inside out. So settle in, turn the lights down, and prepare yourself for once this story begins, you won't be able to look away. She was the face millions woke up to. The calm voice in chaotic mornings. The woman who delivered headlines with flawless poise. For years, 48-year-old Angeline Mock wasn't just a news anchor. She was a ritual, a comforting presence people built their mornings around. Bright smile, sleek hair, a steady, controlled warmth only the best anchors possess. When she appeared on screen saying, "Good morning to you," we made it to Tuesday, November 26th. Viewers believed her, believed in her, because Angie looked grounded, professional, safe, the kind of person you would trust with anything, even your peace of mind. But here, on Minds of Murderers, we know better than to trust appearances. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, because the story you're about to hear is one of the most disturbing falls from grace we have ever covered. Because by Halloween of 2025, the Angie everyone thought they knew was already gone. Not lost, not struggling, gone. Replaced by a woman spiraling into a darkness no one around her truly understood. A darkness that would leave blood on the walls, a community in shock, and a family destroyed in a way no one could have imagined. This is the story of what happens when the face you trust on television becomes the face you fear in real life. It was 7:51 a.m., a time when most people are rushing through breakfast, preparing for work, or inching through morning traffic. But on that street, on that Halloween morning, something unimaginable was already unfolding. A neighbor and her boyfriend were driving, talking casually, when a figure suddenly burst into the road, waving frantically, stumbling toward their car. It was Angie. She wasn't the polished anchor from television. She wasn't composed. She wasn't calm. She was shaking violently, her breath sharp and broken, her entire body smeared with blood. Her hands, her clothes, even streaks across her face. She looked like she had clawed her way out of a nightmare she still wasn't free from. She rushed to the driver's window, begging, pleading for them to call 911. Before they could react, she grabbed their phone and sprinted back toward her house, looking over her shoulder as if something unseen was chasing her. The neighbors were frozen, stunned, confused. They had known Angie as the quiet woman who lived with her elderly mother. None of this made sense. Minutes later, the 911 call came in. Angie's voice was frantic, shaking, speeding between terror and urgency. And then she said the sentence that made the dispatcher go silent, the sentence police officers would later replay over and over again in disbelief. "I had to stop the mother to save myself." Those 11 words changed everything. They were the first clue that this was not an accident, not a break-in, not something that happened to Angie, but something she had done. And at that moment, officers knew this call would not lead them to a rescue. It would lead them straight into a crime scene soaked in horror. When officers arrived at the house, they moved quickly, but nothing could prepare them for what waited behind the front door. The moment they stepped inside, the smell of blood hit them first. Sharp, metallic, heavy. The kind of smell that tells seasoned detectives this isn't a minor injury, this is a massacre. The kitchen was their first stop. A cell phone lay on the sink, smeared with blood. A kitchen knife, clean, out of place, rested on the floor as if dropped mid-swing. Just a few feet away, another knife sat on the living room carpet, this one drenched in blood. A second phone was found abandoned on the coffee table, as if someone set it down in a hurry or simply forgot it existed in the chaos. But the worst of it wasn't downstairs. The real nightmare waited in the bedroom. The moment officers stepped through that doorway, everything changed. On the bed lay 80-year-old Anita Avers, Angie's mother. She wasn't moving. She wasn't breathing. Her face, her head, her torso, all covered in deep, violent stab wounds. Not calculated. Not controlled. This was frenzied. Explosive. The kind of attack driven by panic, delusion, or pure rage. Any one of those wounds could have been fatal. Together, they painted a portrait of absolute terror. Next to Anita's body, something even stranger caught the detective's eyes. A neat arrangement of kitchen knives placed carefully on a pillow beside her. And beside them, a cheese grater. Not tossed, not scattered, positioned, as if someone had paused after the violence and organized the tools used to commit it. Detectives would later say it was one of the eeriest details they'd ever seen. Blood painted nearly every surface of the bedroom. Walls, sheets, floor, furniture. It wasn't a scene anyone forgets. Not even seasoned investigators. Paramedics rushed both women out of the house as fast as they could. Angie survived her injuries. Anita did not. 2 hours later, at the hospital, she was pronounced dead. And with that, the investigation shifted. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a homicide. And the only surviving witness was Angie herself. When detectives finally sat Angie down, they weren't expecting calmness, only clarity. But clarity was the one thing they would never get. What followed wasn't a statement, it was a maze. A shifting, twisting timeline that changed every time she opened her mouth. In her first version, Angie said she walked into the bedroom and found her mother sharpening knives, sitting on the bed, waiting, watching her. In the second version, she said her mother suddenly charged at her with one of those knives. In the third, she insisted her mother was jealous that Angie had a job interview coming up and Anita didn't want her to succeed. Then came the fourth version, a complete spiral. Angie claimed her mother attacked first, or maybe she attacked first, or maybe they both did. Every detail changed. Every sequence rewrote itself. Facts melted into confusion. Detectives quickly realized they weren't speaking to a woman who was lying. They were speaking to someone who no longer understood what was real. As the minutes passed, Angie's behavior shifted from frantic to unsettling. She whispered to herself, muttered under her breath, and stared into corners as if she saw people no one else could see. At one point, she began talking to someone who wasn't there, responding to voices detectives couldn't hear. They watched disbelief turn into concern. They watched concern turn into dread. And then she said the sentence that reframed everything. She told him her mother wasn't really her mother anymore. That something else had taken over, something dark, something evil, something she called a demon. Angie claimed she had to kill it to save her mother's soul, to bring her real mom back. That was the moment detectives understood this case wasn't just violent. It was psychological. It wasn't just tragic. It was delusional. Angie wasn't simply giving inconsistent statements. She was unraveling in front of them. This wasn't the story of a criminal trying to hide a motive. This was the story of a mind breaking wide open, collapsing under the weight of its own hallucinations. As detectives dug deeper, a disturbing truth began to surface. This didn't start on Halloween morning. According to Angie's stepfather, Barry, her decline had been building for years. Quietly at first, then loudly, then uncontrollably. Years earlier, Angie had experienced a major breakdown involving alcohol, an episode so explosive that it cost her the career she had built her entire adult life. Her reputation shattered, her confidence gone. She moved back home. Anita, her mother, a trained therapist, did everything she could to help her daughter stabilize. But mental illness doesn't negotiate with love. Eventually, Angie received a diagnosis, bipolar disorder. Later, that diagnosis shifted into something far more severe, schizoaffective disorder, a condition mixing hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, and violent mood swings. She was prescribed medication. But medication only works when it's taken. Some days she did. Some days she didn't. And every missed dose loosened her grip on reality just a little more. Barry revealed an incident that now feels like a warning siren no one fully heard. Just weeks before the murder, Angie erupted during a simple family card game. Out of nowhere, she insisted her family members weren't real. She said they were robots, artificial, cold, imposters wearing the faces of the people she loved. The episode spiraled so quickly that she was hospitalized for 2 full weeks. Doctors stabilized her. She was released, and everyone allowed themselves to hope she was improving. But mental illness is a quiet storm. It recedes just long enough for the people around you to exhale, before it gathers strength again. The red flags were there, big, blazing, impossible to ignore signs, but they appeared, then faded, then reappeared in new forms. Enough to raise concern, never enough to force emergency intervention. Until Halloween morning proved that Angie's mind had fractured completely. This wasn't sudden. It was the final collision of years of untreated breaks, missed medications, and delusions strong enough to drown out reality itself. Angie was arrested in the hospital as soon as doctors confirmed she would survive her injuries. By the time she was transported to jail, prosecutors had already made their position crystal clear. They believed this was not a moment of panic, not an act of self-defense, but a deliberate, premeditated killing. And with that, Angeline Mock, once the trusted face of the morning news, was formally charged with first-degree murder. The courtroom was packed the day she appeared before the judge. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters whispered. Community members who once started their mornings with her voice now stared, trying to reconcile the woman on TV with the woman shackled at the wrists. Angie walked in slowly, almost floating, her eyes distant, her posture stiff. And then something happened that made the entire room freeze. She smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a confused smile. A simple, calm, almost serene smile. A smile that seemed to exist in a completely different world than the one she was standing in. People watching from home felt the same chill race up their spines. It didn't look like she was processing the gravity of the situation. It didn't look like she understood the charges. It looked like she was drifting through a haze of her own reality, untouched by the horror she was accused of creating. Prosecutors used that moment as fuel. They argued she understood exactly what she had done. They argued she planned it. But Angie's behavior told a different story, one of disconnection, confusion, delusion. When the judge set her bond at $1 million, a smile slowly faded. Her face tightened. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes began to well with tears she tried desperately to hold back. Reality, for the first time, broke through the fog. The judge ordered a full psychiatric evaluation, one that would determine whether Angie was mentally competent to stand trial and whether her actions were driven by intent or by a mind that had completely collapsed. And as guards led her away, the courtroom was left with a single question echoing in the silence. Was that smile the expression of a killer? Or the final flicker of a woman who no longer recognized the world she lived in? The news of Anita Aver's death rippled through the community like a shockwave. She wasn't just another victim. She was a therapist, a helper, a woman known for calming the storms in other people's lives. People trusted her with their deepest fears, their darkest thoughts, their most fragile moments. And now, the same hands that offered guidance and comfort had been taken away in the most violent way imaginable. Her clients struggled to process the reality. How could someone who had spent a lifetime helping others survive their inner battles fall victim to the one battle she couldn't win? Her own daughter's unraveling mind. Colleagues were stunned. Friends were shaken. Families whispered anxiously, realizing the tragedy could touch anyone, anywhere, even those who devoted their lives to protecting others. But it wasn't just grief. There was confusion. There was fear. How could Angeline Mock, the polished, calm, trusted anchor, turn to the person who could commit such a crime? People who once welcomed her into their homes through their television screens now recoiled from the thought that she had been standing right there in front of them, hiding a storm that no one could see. The city mourned Anita Aver's, but beyond sorrow, there was a creeping unease. If a woman like Anita, someone so grounded, so nurturing, could fall victim to her own child, then the question everyone quietly asked themselves was the same. How many other families were living on the edge of a similar disaster? How many red flags were being ignored, waiting for a breaking point that no one could prevent? And as the community lit candles and shared stories of Anita's kindness, the darker truth lingered behind every memory. Tragedy often hides in plain sight, and sometimes the person you try to save the most becomes the one who destroys everything. As shocking as Angie Mock's case was, it was far from unique. Across the country, stories like hers remind us that families often drown silently under the weight of untreated mental illness. One particularly chilling example is the case of Carly Gregg. Carly's story begins with a mother who was desperate to help her daughter. She uncovered secrets no parent wants to find: hidden burner phones, THC vapes, cheating at school, self-harm. The mother tried to intervene to stabilize her daughter's life, to protect her from the darkness that had begun to take hold. But the attempt at love became a trap, a trigger, a step toward disaster. On the day it all came to a head, kitchen cameras captured a haunting scene. Carly walked calmly past the lens, a gun hidden behind her back. There was no hesitation, no panic. Seconds later, 3 gunshots rang out. A scream, silence, and then the most terrifying moment of all, Carly didn't flee. She didn't cry. She sat at the kitchen table, texting, waiting for her stepfather to arrive so she could finish what she had begun. Now, Carly Gregg is serving a life sentence. But the pattern that emerges when you compare her story to Angie Mock's is impossible to ignore. Families, desperate to help, often fail to grasp the depth of untreated mental illness. Warning signs flash like neon beacons, then fade long enough for loved ones to hope things are okay. But the storm continues to gather. And when it erupts fully, violently, and without warning. These are not just isolated tragedies. They are alarm bells, one after another, echoing across households and communities. And the scariest truth is this: the very people we try to save, the ones we love most, may be hiding battles so dark that, when the final breaking point comes, no amount of care, no amount of preparation can prevent disaster. Cases like Angie Mock's force us to confront a reality most people would rather ignore. Mental illness is real. It is dangerous when untreated, and it does not discriminate. It does not care how much love surrounds a person, how much guidance they receive, or how much potential they once had. Sometimes, even the strongest bonds, the deepest care, and the most devoted support cannot prevent a mind from shattering. Anita Avers spent a lifetime helping others navigate their darkest moments, offering comfort, stability, and hope. And yet, in her own home, in her own life, she became the victim of a storm she could not control. Families everywhere are left asking themselves the same question: could this happen to us? Could we miss the warning signs? Could we fail to intervene before it's too late? The truth is uncomfortable, and it is terrifying. The people we trust the most, the ones we love beyond measure, may be silently fighting battles we can never see. And when those battles erupt, the consequences can be devastating, irreversible, and unimaginable. Here at Minds of Murderers, we tell these stories not to scare you, but to make you aware. To make you watch more closely, listen more carefully, and notice the signs that could save a life or prevent a tragedy before it begins. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Stay alert. Stay informed. Stay safe. And remember, sometimes the people who seem the most put together are the ones hiding the darkest storms.